I was just sitting here feeling such a lot of gratitude for people coming, making the effort to be here and to create a space that we can share and explore and meet. Um, and I'm really grateful to Flint for asking me to sit in this seat just a little while before I'm entrusted as a lay Zen teacher. And um, it feels like such an honor and a privilege um, and and a little odd as well. All of those things. And at this moment in time, I'm kind of really aware of the danger that so many are living in the world, so much harm and hurt that's happening at the moment. And there's a way in which I don't want to betray the privilege that we have of sitting in comfort, to really acknowledge that right now we're sitting here in a degrees of relative safety. And I am also deeply grateful to my practice, because it feels like practice is one of the ways to make a container where we can sit in comfort and live together in our troubled, terrible, miraculous world. So for this next space of our time together, I'm also thinking of and sending thoughts to all those people who aren't sitting in comfort and don't feel supported and loved. And it feels like that sense of living with paradox and finding a kind of container that's big enough to hold all of this has certainly been my life's journey. Finding enough space to have all of the parts of me that I've struggled with or other people have struggled with, and to find a space for all of that. And I imagine for most of us sitting here, that's also part of your journey, to how do we live with this immensity and ordinariness of being human. And today I'm kind of really noticing the extraordinary thing is I'm sitting on the other side of the camera, and I'm not. So I'm sitting in exactly the place that I've sat in for 2 or 3 years now, coming to the Cloud Sangha, and I tell you, my heart does not feel quite the same. So there's a degree of kind of like, oh, this is a little different. So to be here, and on the other side, and what is different, and it's absolutely something, and it's absolutely nothing. And for me, being invited to be a teacher has been such an opportunity to explore this sense of what is the same and what's different. And one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is thresholds, because I feel like I'm kind of sitting on one. I'm sitting right before the door, where I'll find out what's different or not. And a threshold can mean all sorts of things, from the kind of really simple, it is literally the strip of wood between that goes by a door that you step over to enter a room or a house. And it's also a point of entry and beginning for courses or something that you're going to do. And it's also, it says it's the magnitude or intensity that must be exceeded for a certain reaction. So we all have internal thresholds, things that we find tolerable and then suddenly they're not tolerable. We have those kinds of thresholds as well, and the maximum level of radiation or concentration for it to be acceptable as a certain kind of risk. So it's also about kind of thresholds are about safety and danger. And it's definitely a dividing line, a crossing between in and out, and a tipping point. So we're all used to, and we will all have experiences of thresholds, places that we have perhaps hesitated on the edge of, or turned away from, or had to manage in some way. And I think a lot of us dive over thresholds because they're so uncomfortable. It's like, let's get this over with. Oh God, Lord, let's just do it. So this sense of kind of walking in a really measured way towards a threshold has been a really interesting practice for me. And I'm sitting very much with my kind of oscillating need to not do it. Let's just walk away from here, you know, before it all happens. And another, just let's get it over with, you know, let's just, and it's really interesting to keep coming back to finding a place that's just, I can hold it and just be with it. So I'm practicing curiosity. I'm really practicing. I have no idea about this. I really have no idea about this. Of course, I have tons of ideas about this, and I have no idea about this. Mary Oliver, in her beautiful poem, When Death Comes, says, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering what's it going to be like, that cottage of darkness. And clearly, being entrusted is not a cottage of darkness, but I do want to step through it with curiosity. And I want to echo her words, where she says, when it's over, I want to say all my life I was a bride married to amazement. I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened and full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. And there is something about that invitation to fully embrace whatever it is that's happening, whether we know what's going to happen or not. Feels to me like really at the core of my practice at the moment. I really, really don't want to have ended up simply visiting this world. And of course, I will have simply visited this world. So I'm trying to practice staying with curiosity. And I know that approaching a ceremony, it will signal something. And yet I also hold that nothing actually changes. And how can I do that? How can any of us approach something where the other side is both known and unknown? And we often have ideas and assumptions, you know, once this has happened, it'll be like this, or once this happens, you know, and we might attach ideas of fear or anxiety or elation or joy, you know, when this happens, it'll all be all right, or when this happens, it'll be a complete disaster. And it's really interesting to think, maybe I don't know. And we have a persistent and neurologically driven need for certainty against a world where we know the core of our practice is embracing uncertainty. And yet to manage the parts of us that persistently seek that kind of, it will be like this. So that knowing what is on the other side, and it can really, you know, we can hesitate until we know, and yet we can't know until we step through. So I'm really curious about what I will feel like on the other side of entrustment. And I also feel really relaxed and kind of a bit kind of just like, I won't know even when I'm through. There's a line from Annie Dillard which I just love, which is, our life is a faint tracing on the surface of mystery. Our life is a faint tracing on the surface of mystery. So it's like, here's another mystery. Here'll be another little bit of the tracing. And then as I was contemplating this idea of thresholds, which was the most immediate thing that occurred to me, was I was being really haunted by a phrase that I read years before I became kind of anything like a Zen Buddhist. Years ago when I read Zen Flesh, Zen Bones as in my 20s. And it's the really cryptic, before enlightenment, Wu Li says, before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. And of course, I am in no way suggesting that my coming ceremony makes any comment about my enlightenment at all, but rather it feels to me that how it points at nothing changes, even as everything changes. So maybe right now, for me, maybe it's before entrustment, sitting on my sofa with you, after entrustment, sitting on my sofa with you. And we'll see what happens. Flint talked last week about the Koan Mu. He also talked about apocalypse and annihilation, and the part of me that gets easily amused by things was easily amused by the fact that I've often referred to myself as an apocalyptimist, which is a truly wonderful word, an apocalyptimist, in which I know everything's going to hell in a handbasket, but I'm fairly chilled about it. And I was thinking that how do we approach annihilation and apocalypse? And certainly in recent years, I've probably struggled a little bit more to hold on to the optimist bit of that. But yeah. But he talked about the Koan Mu, and I was thinking about the gateless gate as he was talking about it. And I was reminded from the kind of Instagram posts that I amuse myself with of seeing there are often kind of little films, and they're usually dogs. And the dog is sitting looking really longingly through a window to the great outdoors, to the outside, where it wants to be, and it's really looking. And then the camera pans along a little bit to the open door. And, and I sometimes feel like our practice is a bit like that. We're all kind of got our noses against the window, really looking at our idea of freedom on the other side. And yet somehow there is this open door that's really close to us. So that sense of a perceived barrier, there is no barrier, but it has to be crossed all the same. We have to notice where the open door is. Mumon said, the great way has no gate. There are 1,000 different roads. If you pass through this barrier once, you will walk independently in the universe. So there is no gate, no threshold, but there is a barrier. But the barrier is not between here and there. It is between our sense of separation and the emptiness that encompasses all things, which are barriers and no barriers. And then I read a beautiful piece by someone called Yongey Mingyur Rinpoche, who was talking of a Tibetan, much more Tibetan kind of concept called the bardo. He said, consider the term bardo. It signifies an intermediary state, a pause that resides between moments. A pause that resides between moments. In this sphere of existence, one uncovers an abundant opportunity to truly comprehend oneself, to delve into the depths of reality, and to explore the intriguing crevices of these transient moments. The impending void can indeed induce fear, yet it's this very gap that transforms the perceived problem into a solution, cultivating joy in the process. What a gorgeous idea that is. The very gap that transforms the perceived problem into a solution, cultivating joy in the process. The key lies in acceptance and the courage to navigate through this bardo, embracing it as a pivotal moment in one's journey, of which there are many. Armed with the right guidance, one can metamorphose these moments into adventures opportunities for self-growth and transformation. Thus the bardo in essence becomes not a void to fear, but a threshold to cross with awakened consciousness. So I'm kind of really intrigued by this idea of space and no space and the threshold that we have to cross to find that there wasn't a threshold. And I'm hoping that kind of has a sense of resonance for people of how many times we've hesitated before something and then we've done something and it's like, oh, now it's like this. And maybe it wasn't anything like I imagined. Maybe it was. As I was imagining this bardo, this place of pause that I'm in and not in, I thought about how we construct ourselves out of our experiences and our narratives and to explain who we are. And there's been some gorgeous research that shows as humans, we have this incredible tendency to make a reason as to why we're doing something. That's often not the reason why we've done something, but it makes sense to us in our narrative. And so we construct backstories that help us make sense of ourselves and the world. And as I was thinking about that kind of like, I imagined one of those travel gilets, you know, the kind of really fancy kind that's got sort of pockets all over it. And, you know, some of them are so secret that you've even forgotten what you've put in them. You know, but you've got this thing, and then to life, you're kind of pulling out of a pocket, you know, well, what would my response be to this? And so I reach into a familiar pocket. Oh, here's a quote. You know, I know what my brain like. You know, here's a poem, here's a quote, here's a little sliver of my history. You know, and I'm using these pockets of my constructed self to say who I am and how I am, or here's a little factoid. I love those. You know, here's an opinion, here's a possibility, and well, here's my insecurity or my anxiety or my ridiculousness. And as I was thinking about that and thinking about emptiness, I was thinking about what it would be like to have a pocket of emptiness, a little pocket that wasn't predetermined. And there was a pocket in which I could kind of put my hand and not know what was going to come out of it, but have some trust that it might be an appropriate response. And in Hakomi, which I've taught for some years, is we would often use the phrase, you know, knowing the difference between what's called up and what's called for. And I was thinking what's called up is all the stuff from the pockets. But sometimes what's called for is not knowing quite how to respond except in the moment to what's actually present. And I loved Suzuki Roshi uses the lovely phrase, letters from emptiness. And he says, when you see a plum blossom or hear the sound of a small stone hitting bamboo, that is a letter from the world of emptiness. And I was thinking, well, maybe I couldn't find a letter, but I might find a postcard. I might find some small place of emptiness. And the more I contemplated that, and was sitting with that idea of what would it be like to put my hand in the pocket where I don't know what's going to come out, I could feel both terror and joy. Real terror and real joy in that possibility. And the more I kind of thought about it, I then got really interested in what would it be like to really do that thing we say, I take refuge. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in Dharma. I take refuge in Sangha. What if the pocket was the place I took from, where I took refuge? And so I was thinking that would be really interesting to trust that. And then I was thinking, what would it be like to be naked, to have no pockets? And while that might be something I don't exactly wish on the world, it was a very intriguing idea of like, what would it be like to let myself respond from a place where I don't know what's going to happen? And so that's really been what I've been chewing around, and I hope it has some resonance for people in how we meet this strange, peculiar life we have. How we might stop relying on what we know and trust that what we don't know might be bigger and more interesting, maybe more joyful than what we think we know. And I came across a poem by W.S. Merwin that I hadn't read. And I love that. I love the kind of like, oh, here's somebody saying it kind of this way. So I read this poem in the light of pockets of emptiness, postcards of emptiness, not knowing. It's called How It Happens. The sky said, I'm watching to see what you can make out of nothing. I was looking up and I said, I thought you were supposed to be doing that. The sky said, many are clinging to that. I'm giving you a chance. I was looking up and I said, I am the only chance I have. I am the only chance I have. Then the sky did not answer, and here we are, with our names for the days, the vast days that do not listen to us. I am the only chance I have. And the sky didn't answer, and here we are, with our names for the days and the vast days that do not listen to us. So, if any of you are interested in this adventure of not knowing, I'm ever so reluctant to say, ask me a question, because you're most likely to get, I don't know. But if you would like to meet, I'd be absolutely delighted to do that.
We have Jan and Duncan.
Hello, Trudy.
Hello, Jan. Hello. Well, and hi, Duncan.
Yeah, I'm sitting on my sofa and I've seen you sit on your sofa, and here we are, and nothing's different and everything's different.
Yeah.
I just wanted to come up and embrace not knowing what the hell I was going to say, actually. There's an edge around, for me, a big edge around not knowing. I've been playing with not knowing is most intimate for a long time. And then it falls off the shelf and I forget. So I'm really grateful to have it put in front of my face again. I've been clinging to a lot of knowing recently, finding answers for.
And it serves you well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does actually. You know, it's important not to rubbish it. So yeah, thank you. It serves me well very often.
Yeah.
And when it leaves no room for not knowing.
Yeah.
And I love that idea of the pockets. And I have in my handbag, I have a pocket, lots of pockets. I like handbags with lots of pockets, and I know what's in every little pocket. So I really like that idea. So yeah, what would it be like to have not know and have in my pockets and see what I find?
Mm. What are you finding right now?
A lightness.
Yeah.
There's a bit of joy. There's a bit of like excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah, some joy.
Yeah, I can feel that. I can really.
Yeah,
I've got what I often think of as my response is my waggy tail. You know, my tail's wag.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel a bit waggy too.
Yeah, yeah. Like there is something joyful in that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It feels like, yeah, sort of a threshold. I've gone through a threshold of sort of grasping at the knowing and like, oh yeah, there's that not knowing place. I need to go there more often.
How big it is.
Yeah, it's like it's massive. It's so expansive, full of possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing that with me.
Thank you. I'm so delighted to be with you in inquiry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mm.
Cassie.
Mm.
There we go.
Hi, Cassie.
Hi, Trudy. I raised my hand because I have a waggy tail. And you know, as we began our sitting and as you spoke, I could tell that I was smiling all the way through it. You know, that I was just like, oh, my cheeks are hurting because I'm smiling. And then I'm feeling so touched that my eyes are watering, and I'm going to carry my pocket of emptiness. That
Mm.
um that that was a turn. That's a nice, that, I mean, and it's a nice turn of phrase, but it's a nice turn.
Mm.
Um so I have some deep appreciation for what you brought, and most tenderly the way you brought it.
Mm.
And I'd like to offer a deep question, and I don't have one.
Thank God. I could offer you my deep, I really don't know.
And isn't that nice?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, deep breath. Uh,
Yeah.
I very much am looking forward to your teacherhood.
Thank you. We'll have an adventure finding out what it is, won't we?
Yeah, I'll be there with you.
Yeah, I feel that. Thank you, Cassie.
You bet. Thank you, Trudy.
Whew.
We have Suzanne next.
Suzanne.
Hello, Trudy. First,
Hello.
I wanted to meet you.
Yes.
We've had a number of emails, which has just been lovely. But when I knew, actually, Maria reminded me that you were teaching today, which I was so glad of. I'm so glad to meet you and so appreciative of what you said about this time prior to entrustment. I very much identify with you. And I'm still finding it out, and it's been 2.5 years. So
I'm kind of hoping you'd tell me.
what's that, Flint often, but that his mentor often said, well, that's such a good question. It doesn't deserve an answer.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I was really touched that you cited Mary Oliver's poem, especially the end of it. It reminded me that I recently heard something that George Bernard Shaw supposedly said. He said, I want to leave this life all used up. And I thought, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And since we don't know when that time is, I think it just behooves me to live as fully as I can and fully as possible.
Yeah, it's a real invitation, isn't it?
It is. It is.
It's not like keeping the china for the best day, it's like, don't keep it for best, break it, use it.
Yes.
Get the joy out of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And now that I've said that and heard what you said, entrustment was a doorway into that.
Yeah.
So thank you. And I wish you so much goodness as you take this step. I wish I could be in England with you. And I will be able to see Flint on the weekend, so I will send my love with him. And just take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we have Ryan next.
Hi, Ryan.
Hello, Trudy. Can you hear me all right?
Perfect.
Well, I'm visiting your couch from Austin, Texas, and it's just so wonderful to listen to your teachings today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
What it brought up for me, it was interesting hearing your remarks. I'm like, well, part of it is clearly prepared, and I love the thoughtfulness you put into it. But part of it, I could feel you just responding and being responsive and open. So I love this pocket of emptiness, but also there's some structure and some thought going beforehand. And you talked about what's coming up versus what's coming forward.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to distinguish that a little bit more for me, especially in sort of feeling it in your body. Like I'm a kinesthetic learner, so understanding, hey, am I trying to hold on something too tightly here and structure it? Does it need a little more emptiness, or is it too free flowing or is there too free flowing? I don't know.
Yeah, I know. That's the thought, isn't it? So, I mean, I think you feel like you've really already got something because you've got some sense of, is it about structure or is it about spontaneous responsiveness? So I think for me, what's called up is usually, the familiar pocket stuff, like my ego's hurt, or I have to help, or it's my job, those kinds of constructs we have about ourselves. And they're often really useful, a bit like I said to Jan, our histories serve us well. They're really often our good friends. But it's something about, but is that what's actually needed right now in this situation with this person? So for me, there's it's an odd thing to say there might be a pause before spontaneity, but it's like, what's called for here? What's called for might be none of the things that I usually do. And what's called for is often a kind of like, what's actually needed? Not necessarily from me, but for this situation right now. So yeah, it has a sort of, I'm thinking about the kinesthetic sense of it. It's like, for me, it's got that kind of slight step back from the immediacy of my experience of like, oh, this is what I want to do. But is that really the right thing? And it really might be. But it really might be, seeing what happens, what's called for. Thank you.
Trudy, hi.
Hi, Joel.
I've seen you many times, and I don't feel that we really had a chance to meet before. So I'm very happy for this day. Very happy for you, for the steps you are taking. And I know they are steps. It's not an event that's happening. It's steps that you are moving toward. And I wrote down what you wrote, or what you said, or at least to the best of my ability, I wrote down something that you said. We can hesitate until we know, and we can't know until we step through. And then you followed up. Even when we step through, maybe we won't know then.
Yeah.
But stepping through is required. And as someone who is very hesitant to step through anything, I know the truth of what you're saying.
Yeah.
It really, there's something psychological, such as reconfirmation of the ability to make choices. You say, oh, I was able to make a choice, and it hasn't turned out so bad. Something like that. But there's a much broader sense that you were pointing to in your pardon me, quotations from Suzuki Roshi and Youngei Mingyur and the others that you were pointing to, that it is it really has something about opening to all of life and all of the universe that we find ourselves in. So anyway, I want to say thank you for these remarks and
yeah, thank you. And I was just thinking, there's a book called it's something about awe, and I was thinking about, when we step through, we often want it to be, like small, and somehow can we step through, and there are more stars in the sky than we'll ever see, but what can we see? There's something about that, opening to something much bigger.
Much bigger. Thank you. And thank you for reminding me of that today.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Trudy. It's so lovely to see you sat in that chair. And it's a bit of a threshold for me to step forward. But if you can do it, then you're setting a prime example for the rest of us.
Yeah.
And it's strange, because what you were saying chimed with some things that were going through my head today. I took a walk through the wood, which is always a beautiful experience, and just processing some things, I think, following a bit of a discussion with your dear other half. And I was thinking about life and about trying to understand why I was the way I was, the way I am, should I say. And it suddenly came to me that there's no point in trying to look for the reasons for how we got here. That all of a sudden there was that sense of, well, here I am. And
Arrived. Sounds like you really arrived.
I don't know what's going to happen next, but I know that I only have a short life. Well, we all do, really. Not that there's anything special about my shortness of life, just that there's more years behind me than in front. And a real sense of opportunity to step outside of those things that keep holding me back, with a view to saying, well, you can just lay those aside and think more about what are the options to go forward. And it just chimed with your threshold.
And you light up with it, something just looks so Like, yeah, what if it's an opportunity? What if this is an opportunity to not just be Julia, even though Julia is wonderful and magnificent? But like, what if? What else can happen?
And the sense of the empty pocket, and many times during this practice, I've had that sense of how naked can you go?
Yeah.
And it's an interesting one. You start getting there and then reach for the wrap, cover up.
Yes. I know.
So thank you, Trudy, and I look forward to sharing time with you at the entrustment ceremony.
Lovely. Really, really grand to have you there. Thank you.
And we have Maria next. Here we go. I'll lower my hand. There we go. Hi, I love what Julia just said. How naked can you go? But there's something about that threshold. I've always noticed thresholds in my life, and you talking about them today was really quite poignant, I think. But it's like we meet a threshold, and it's like it's that waiting to feel ready, always waiting to feel ready. And I've never felt ready, and I've always had somebody, luckily, at the threshold who's just picked me up and put me over. You've been one of those in one of the periods in my life that's just come on, you're ready. You know, my driving instructor after 3 years of lessons, come on, you're ready. And there's always this, but it's that just thinking lately about that pocket of emptiness and about sitting in that still place. And because it's like, what does ready look like? We're waiting.
What does it even mean, Maria?
Yeah. It's like we can wait to be ready, but we wait forever because we just don't know what it looks like, and we're waiting for something to feel completely ready. But there's always going to be like a hesitance or a restlessness in something new, or a fear, or a shakiness, a tremor.
All of it. And if we think being ready means we're like, we're the pre-basted chicken just to go in the oven, and that's all that's going to happen. I'm all prepared and now you just cook me. It's like it misses the whole transformation of being cooked. We're never ready. We're always ready.
And there's that kind of, if we're always meeting places and people with an idea or a preparation, it's like there's something about missing the meat, always missing the meat, because you're ready or there's an energy, rather than like you were talking about reaching in that pocket of emptiness and just sitting there in that still place and just waiting, like Ryan was talking about, waiting for something to come forward, rather than what would Maria do? She's like, it's a bit quiet here, so let's make let's kind of fill in the space a bit, let's, rather than, is that really required right now? And just to sit and see what arises, how different that is when we just, like you said about pause.
What would it be like right now if we just sat and looked at the universe together?
Yeah, and it's that pause that you were talking about, that always going into the pause, into the pocket, into the empty place before responding. And like you said, it might be that, let's all have a bit of a giggle, or it might be there's something a bit softer required here, but you can't meet the air if you're busy preparing. You can't meet it, can you? It's that, just settling, letting our systems settle. And I think that's where I'm up to.
I'm still watching the universe. What are you doing?
I'm filling the space up. Because I was thinking, well, I can't just sit here. We're in inquiry, and I'll have to, I have to sit. And it's that kind of like what we think we have to do when actually we can just.
The universe is doing just fine. It's doing
And there's nothing to do.
No.
There's nothing to do. There's nothing to prepare.
Yeah.
It's there, isn't it? We have everything. We have everything.
Absolutely everything.
Mm. Thank you so much, Trudy, and thank you for everything.
You're totally welcome. So I'm just going to, what I'm feeling is, real gratitude for the people who've come forward, but also for everyone else being here and having this opportunity to meet and meet myself and meet my own curiosity and all of those things that have been with me today. So I'm just feeling a lot of gratitude and really looking forward to seeing Flint quite soon in person, and all the people who are coming to our retreat, which is around ceremony. So I think we'll have lots of opportunities to notice what's called up and what's called for. So we can finish with, I've totally forgotten what we finished with, Maria. Give me a nudge.
Or practice principles.
Thank you very much. We'll finish with those. So thank you. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Caught in the self-centered dream, only suffering, holding to self-centered thoughts, exactly the dream. Each moment, life as it is, the only teacher, being just this moment, compassion's way. Thank you all for being there, and I look forward to seeing some of you in person very soon. I think, Maria, you're on the porch.
Best unmute myself. Thank you so much, Trudy, and thank you for that wonderful talk. It's moving through my body, and I can see from everybody's faces that it's moving through their bodies too. So thank you so much for that. And if you'd like to offer Dana to Trudy, then I've put the link in the chat. And if you'd like to offer Dana to Appamada, please do that also if you wish to. And I'm going to stay here now for a further 30 minutes. So if you'd like to join myself and others on the porch, please do. Thank you all so much. Thank you again, Trudy. Bye bye to those that are going. Love to you all.